Lesson 3.4, Direct Variation. A direct variation equation is in this form: y equals m times x. Where m does not equal 0. I'm sorry, this is wrong. Does not equal 0. Okay? So a direct variation equation is always in this form: y equals m times x, where m does not equal 0. M represents the slope of the line, as you already well know. The slope has interchangeable terms. It's called the constant of variation, it's called the rate of change, and it's also called the slope. Okay? Here's what you need to know. The graph of a direct variation equation will always pass through the origin on your graph. Will always go through 0, 0. Therefore, the x and the y intercepts are both 0. So here's how we're going to graph these equations. Write this down. To graph a direct variation equation, number 1, graph the point 0, 0. Number 2, write the slope as a ratio. Number 3, starting at 0, 0, rise and run to graph 2 additional points. Number 4, draw a line through all 3 points that you now have on your graph. And you're done graphing. Okay? All right, let's practice. Here we go. Number 1, y equals 6x. I know that this is a direct variation equation because it takes the form of y equals m times x. If the equation takes that form, then I know it's a direct variation equation. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and work on graphing that real quick. Right, my first step is always going to be to graph that first point, which is at the origin, 0, 0. Direct variation equations will always go through that point. Okay? All right, step number 2, I'm going to take my equation and write the slope as a ratio. So how can I write 6 as a ratio? Well, it's 6 over 1. 6 over 1 can also be written -6 over -1. Isn't it true that 6 over 1 and -6 over -1 are the same? All right, so I'm going to use both of these. Remember that slope is rise over run, okay? And I'm going to show you how we're going to graph this equation. So starting at 0, 0, I'll place my stylus on 0, 0. I'm going to rise +6, so that means I'm going up 6. And I'm going to run 1. And so my y is in the way. Let me rewrite that where it goes. Hang on a second. Let's put it here. Okay, so let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and over 1. There's another point. And then from 0, 0 again, I'm going to go down 6 and to the left 1. So I have 3 points. And through those 3 points, I can go ahead and graph my line. Okay, number 2. Y equals 2/3 x. When I look at that equation, I realize it's a direct variation equation because it takes the form y equals mx. Okay, So let's go ahead and graph it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is always start with that one point that I know this line goes through. Because it's a direct variation equation, I can plot my first point right here at the origin at 0, 0. That point is on my line. So the next thing that I'll do is I'm going to define my slope. My slope is 2 over 3, or I can call it negative 2 over negative 3. Those are both the same. Remember that it's rise over run. So to graph my line, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to place my stylus over the origin. I'm going to rise 2 up 2, and I'm going to run positive 3, and I know I have a point there. Then I'm going to do it again in the opposite direction. I'm going to go down 2, rise negative 2, and run negative 3 to the left. And I have a point there. And then I go ahead and graph my equation. Okay, take a moment to do numbers 3 and 4 on your own. Pause the video now. Okay, check your graphs. Make sure that you graphed your equations accurately. Okay, write and solve a direct variation equation. Remember that this is a direct variation equation. It looks like that. Y equals mx. Y equals mx, where m represents the slope of your line. Okay? All right, so here's what they give us. Y equals 72. X equals 8. And then they want us to find x when y is 63. How are we going to find x where y is 63? Well, we need to determine the slope of this line. Okay? So let's start with the information they're giving us. Here's the equation, y equals mx. And we're going to substitute 72 for y and 8 for x. So here we go. 72 equals 8m. In order to solve for the slope of this line, we're going to divide by 8 on both sides, so 9 equals the slope. So now I know my equation. It looks like this. Y equals 9x. Okay, so how do I find x where y is 63? Let's substitute 63 for y. 63 equals 9 times what number? Divide by 9 on both sides, 7 equals x. And that would be the answer. Okay? We're just algebraically finding the equation. Okay? Here we go. Some independent practice for you. Name the constant of variation for each equation. So that's referring to the equation that's given. Then determine the slope of the line that passes through each pair of points. In order to do that, you're going to use your slope formula. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So you have two answers here. For number 1, the constant of variation is one answer, and then the slope of the line is the other answer. We know that they're both going to be exactly the same number, but I want you to realize that it is the same number by doing this exercise. Okay? All right, here we go. Suppose y varies directly as x. That tells you that it's a direct variation equation that looks like that. It says write a direct variation equation that relates x to y and then solve. So you'll do 4, 5, and 7. Okay? We'll continue to work with direct variation equations tomorrow. Don't forget to write down any relevant questions that you have. And I'll be happy to answer them first thing in the morning. God bless you. Have a great night.